bottom of Yud Zayin Amid Aleph, the bottom of 17A1, the bottom of 17A, I mean, the 17A4, 17A4, the last paragraph in the art scroll.
Okay.
Okay. We're talking about another story about excommunication. Okay. We're still in that part of the story. Okay. Everybody got it? It says Ahu Alma. There was a bully. Okay. Everybody got it? Okay. Here we go.
Yeah, I have it.
Great. Okay. So just, if I'm not clear, just tell me. Okay, here we go. Ahu Alma. There was a bully who was tormenting a young rabbinical student. So also the comment to Rabbi Yosef. So the guy came to Rabbi Yosef and said, "What should I do?" Amalei. So he told to the student, "Zil Shamte, go put the bully into Shamta," meaning the lowest level of Cherem Nidui plus a curse. Amalei. I'm afraid of him. I'm afraid of him. He's a big bully. He's big, stronger than me. Amalei shikli pesichalel. Then write him a psicha. Not only say put him into nidui, into excommunication. Write him a thing that he's officially in excommunication. So then he said, the student said just the opposite. Kol shekei demis v'ninamine. All the more that I will fear him. He'll get all angry with me and he'll really beat me up. So Amalei said like this: Shakle, write up the excommunication, take it, Asya Bikado, place it into a jar. Now we're on Amid Beis, Yud Zayin Amid Beis, 17B1. Ba'asya Bekivire, and put it into a cemetery. Vikari Alpi Shapure Aboyim Yamin. Blow 1,000 shofar blasts in the jar for 40 days. Ozil Kavod Achi, he did that. Paka Kada Umis Alama. The jar burst and the bully died. So what's going on here? So he put him in the jar into the cemetery. The idea being, first of all, the jar was made out of earthenware. To connote that human beings are made out of earth or nothing more. And just like in order to be mitayr, an earthenware keli, you have to break it. This bully should also be broken. He blew into it 1,000 times because 1,000 is like one day by the Rabbeinu Shalom. Elef shanim ki yom echad. 1,000 years is like one day by Hashem. It connotates Hashem. Also, in the Jewish counting, 1,000 is the highest number that you can count with the Aleph base. That's what we do. Like we are now in Tuf Shin Pei Aleph, which is 5,782 years. The numbers Tuf Shin Pei Aleph don't equal 5,782. They only equal 800. They only equal what I said.
You
5,000.
add 5,000.
Two exactly. So that's 1,000 is connotates to all the baby stuff. Why 40 days? And here's the fun part. Because according to us, life does not begin at conception. Life begins at day 40. When the chart is beating and the fetus can feel pain, that's human. And the ability to have empathy, to feel pain, that makes something alive. The first 40 days is water be alma, is just like water. This is the reason why that us Jews do not join in the abortion debate. Because theoretically, the first 40 days, it's not an abortion. Because we hold that there's nothing going on yet in the first 40 days. It takes 40 days for mitosis to get to the point that the heart is beating and the fetus can now feel pain. That at that moment it is now human and it's no longer can you do abortion. So that is the reason why that the Jewish voice in that conversation is very, very silent. Because we do not agree that it begins at conception. On the other hand, we don't agree that you can wait throughout the first trimester. That is very fascinating. That's why I said this. That's why I wanted to start the Gemara over here. So as the Gemara says, "My shipure," what's the significance of the shofar blast? Shenifrin mimenu, that through the excommunication we exact retribution from him. Shenifroin, which sounds like shofar. My tavar, why do we blow broken blasts, meaning shivarim teruas? Amar Rav Yitzchak Bereid Rav Yehuda, Tavrei Bote Rami, right? The broken blast allude to the fact that excommunication breaks, shatters tall buildings. The Tanya, Amar Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, Kol Bokav Shenastu Chachaber Beineyev, whenever the sages set their eyes, Oy Misa, Oy Ani. Either Misa or Ani. Hang on just 1 second. I'm going to make sure they don't need me inside. No, we're good. Okay. Whoops. Hang on a second. Okay. Here we go. All right. We're just going to go for, I'm going to try to get us at least to today's daf so that we're all what he called. And then I guess we'll do the daf on the run. But let's just get to the bottom of the Yomid. Says the Gemara in Baita, and people may cut their hairs, the Nazi or the Mitzayra, who come out of their state of Tumah to his state of purity. So in other words, if it should come out that on Chalamoid, they come out of their state of contamination to their state of purity, then because they weren't able to do it prior to then, they're allowed to cut their hair on Chalamoid. So as the Gemara, does the Mishnah allow them to cut the hair only when they didn't have the opportunity to do so before the Yontif, because they were because they're tahar only on the Yontif itself, they were tameh before Yontif. Even if they had the opportunity, but for whatever reason they didn't. In other words, they became tar before the start of the Yontif. Im kolzeh, it's what he called. Im kolzeh, are they allowed to or not on Chalamoid if they didn't do it before? It says the Gemara, we learned all these people who did Chachamim said you're allowed to cut their hair on the Yontif, who didn't have an opportunity prior. But in the case of a Nazir and a Mitzayru who became tar, even though they had time on Erev Yontif, when their days ended, they had the opportunity to take a haircut, but they didn't do so. They're allowed to cut their hair on Chalamoid. Because we're afraid that if you say that
you have to wait till after the Yontif.
They're going to go ahead and bring their carbons on Yontif. Their carbons are carbon yachids, private carbons. Only public carbon seaboards are only the ones that are allowed to be brought either on Shabbos or on Yontif. Because we're afraid that they're going to push things off if we don't allow them to take their haircuts and it's abaita. So therefore we don't
They're not going to bring the bonus.
Right, exactly. Because if they didn't take their haircuts, they're not going to take their kabbalas. They're going to end up doing it on Yontif, and that's not good. So therefore, we push it aside. The answer to all of this is that all of these are rabbinical in nature. So there's a little more room to maneuver. Where it's biblical in nature, obviously there's a lot less room to maneuver. Good. Let's go a little further before I get called back into the house. Tana, we learned. Hakayin va'ovel mutarim b'galeach. A kayin and a mourner who did not cut their hair before Yontif are allowed to cut their hair on Chalamoid. Hi oval hechidami. What is the case of the oval? We're now on 17b2 in the art scroll, working our way down to today's daf. If you say his 8th day of his mourning, meaning he finished the 7 days of Abelus and is now beginning his Shaloshim, really the 8th day of the Shaloshim, because the first 7 days of Abelus is the first 7 days of Shaloshim, but still, he's beginning his Shaloshim.
So that's the 7th day at night.
It's the 7th day at night. Exact. Right. In other words,
the night of the 8th.
Right, because Jewish days are Vayera Vayibayk. It's night,
Right.
it's night and day. So we finished
So,
the 7 days of Avelus, and the beginning the 8th day, i.e., at night, of the rest of Shloshim. So we're going to call it now Shloshim.
so there's no time in between to take a haircut.
Well. So that's what on this case, because Erev Yontif was the 7th day of Avelus. We say, what are you talking about? He should have cut his hair on Erev Yontif. It was the last day of Avelus, but we know we have a rule. Mixas hayom kikulai. Part of a day is like a whole day. The last day of Avelus, what do? We sit for an hour, and then we get up and we walk around the block, and we're done, right? And
Yes.
you're allowed it. And because it's Erev Yom Tiv, even though it's Shloshim, it's Erev Yom Tiv, you're allowed to take a haircut because of Yom Tiv. Is Ibazai. Why didn't he take advantage of it on Erev Yom Tiv? So let's work our way through the Gemara. Ella, Shechal Shemini Shaloi Liyos B'Shabbos Erev HaRegel. The 8th day, that means the beginning of the Shloshim, what fell out on a Shabbos, which is also Erev Yom Tiv. Erev Shabbos. Now, there's no solution, because even Chazal say he should have cut his hair on Friday, which is the 7th day of mourning. The halacha is like Abishol that holds mixas hayom kikulai. So Friday in the morning, you get up, you walk around the block, and you're done with your Avelos. Now begins Shloshim. But since Shloshim is Erev Shabbos, and it's also Erev the Yontif, you should have taken a haircut, right? And the Chachamim agreed to Abishol, Shechal Shemini Shaloi, Liyos B'Shabbos Erev HaRegel, that if his 8th day, the complete 8th day, that means the beginning of the Shloshim falls out on Shabbos, which is Erev Yontif, Shabbos, in honor of the Shabbos, in the honor of the Yontif. They even agree, even though they're not big in this mixas hayom kikulai, they say you're allowed to do it on Friday. So why are we allowing him to take a haircut on Chol Moed? Says the Gemara, like we are dealing in a case where the 7th day, the last day of Avelus, falls out on Shabbos, which is also Erev HaRegel, Erev Yontif. Now, Tana Bara Savalakir Shmuel, Abishmol. The Tana of the Brisa follows the view of Abishmol, the Homa, Mixas Hayom Kikuloi. Part of a day is like the whole day. Ubeyoim Hashivi, and therefore the 7th day is Oilaloi Mikan Milikan. By definition, the 7th day of Avelus is the end of the period of the 7 days of Avelus, and also is the beginning of the Shloshim. It's a combination, because Mixas Hayom Kikulai, so the morning is like the Avelus, the rest of the day is like a regular Shloshim, right? It's the last day of Shiva and the first day of Shloshim, right? It means the Shloshim, therefore, will have begun before the Yontif. And we have a rule, if the Shloshim begins before Yontif, what does Yontif do? It gets rid of all the rest of the Shloshim, right? Which therefore will allow you, since it's Erev Yontif, to take a haircut on your first day of Shloshim, which is also the last day of your Avelus. Take a haircut. Even the Shabbos, but since that 7th day happens to fall out on Shabbos, so now you messed up. Since you certainly couldn't do it on the 6th day, you couldn't take, because that's real Avelus. Therefore, you could take a haircut on Chol Moed. Tana di don Sabalak Rabbanan. And our Tana follows the views of the Chachamim Dami Loy Amina Mixas Hayom Kikulai, right? Which means Va'akati Loy Hishlam Avelus Shiva. That means the 7th day of Avelus, you do not get up after 1 hour. You have to hold Avelus the entire day. You have to hold the entire day, which means that Shloshim did not start until the nighttime. But Shloshim not starting until the nighttime, it's already Yontif. If it's already Yontif, and then Shloshim come, guess what happened? Shleishim doesn't disappear. Shleishim is only pushed off to after Yontif. After Yontif, you have to complete your Shleishim because there was no Shleishim in existence for Yontif to completely erase. So since the Shleishim was not in existence yet, it only becomes inconsistent on Yontif itself. That's no good since obviously Yontif overrides any Avela. So therefore, it begins afterwards. In that case, therefore, the Shleishim was not canceled by the Yontif. So even if the Yontif had fallen on a weekday, he would not have been allowed to cut his hair, and therefore, it cannot be said that he was prevented from cutting his hair by the circumstances of Shabbos that day. So here the Gemara wants to say essentially that you cannot cut your hair on the Chalamoid. The Rishash and everybody's bothered and says, Adarabba, this is proof that you are allowed to cut your hair on Chalamoid. So understanding this little piece of Gemara right here is very hard.
Because he had no chance to do it before.
Right, but you didn't have a chance to do it before.
So therefore you do it Chalamoid, yeah.
You do it Chalamoid. And that's the way we're learning the Gemara. Says the Gemara. Just a little bit further, then I got to go back in. It's almost 9:30. Hi, Koyin, hey, Chidami. This Koyin, right? What is he allowed to cut his hair on Chalamoid? If you say that his mishmar ends on the Erev Yontif, remember there's 24 mishmaris, and ended on Erev Yontif. With 17b3, okay, he should have cut his hair on the eve of the Yontif. Why is he allowed to cut it on Chalamoid? That what it means means not the case here. Here the good is allowed concerning the case where Shabbos, on which his mishmar ended, fell in the middle of the Yontif. That it fell in the middle of the Yontif. He wasn't allowed to take a haircut during his mishmar. So therefore, he could do it on Chalamoid. We're just doing a little more, and then we're going to stop by the Tana Rabbanan. Tana Didach Sava, Chiv on the Tana Shleisha Barakam Beshana Hayakol Mishmar Shavais, during the 3 periods of the year, Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot. All 24 mishmaris are equal. In the sharing of the emurim, the body, the animal parts, the 24 madnas kahuna, the 24 presents to the kahuna on the yontifs, and the division of the lechem upon bread, the bread from the show bread that was on the shulchan azov, on the golden table. Therefore, his mishmar, even though theoretically it ended before Yontif, really continues in reality through Yontif, because all the mishmaris are on during Yontif. The Tana Sava and the Tana of our Brisa holds, even though he's associated with the mishmar, meaning he can have from the Matnes Kahuna, his own mishmar ended and he was capable of taking a haircut. And so our guy says you cannot take a haircut on Chalamoid. But according to the other one, you could take a haircut on Chalamoid. Very good. We're up to here. So tomorrow, everybody should try to do Daf Yud Ches on their own. And we're going to go till, I believe there's a second Mishnah over there. There's a Mishnah on the bottom of Yud Ches on the page. Give me a second. I'm trying to find where the page is. Yeah, so we're picking it up on 18b6. On 18b6, there is a Mishnah. Okay, so that's where we're going to pick it up.